to invite Sadhvi Jaya Bharti on the stage, who will be in conversation with my colleague, Ishita Mitra.
Thank you for joining us and for agreeing to share your story on this platform with us.
Republic has taken real effort in bringing out real stories that truly matter. I really compliment that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Of course, it is the day where we celebrate the stories from the ground, stories that have made changes, stories that talks about transformation. Now, because we're talking about stories, let's rewind a little bit and start with your journey, okay? You entered the spiritual path at a very young age, in your early 20s, you know. A lot of young people are here. This is the age when we're still exploring things. We don't have answers to, you know, and at that age, you took a decisive decision that spirituality is something you want to explore, right? I want to understand, how did you arrive at that decision, and what exactly the circumstances around you when you entered that path?
So I'd say that more than, so there was a certain incident I would like to talk to everyone here. So you remember there was an earthquake in Bhuj at that time. So I was an athlete with Sports Authority of India then, and I had actually escaped the earthquake by one day. I left the place a day before, and before I even reached my house, I figured out there was an earthquake. So I couldn't go back to my sports college back immediately, and I was there to stay. Incidentally, I came in connection to an organization that was working, and I liked the way they were doing the social work, and I started helping them in bringing the first program of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan in Uttarakhand. You know, Dehradun, I belong to that place. And we found a girl which was in a slum that we were serving, and I found a girl that was 40% burnt and had maggots in her body. So she was burnt for almost 12 days. The pus was oozing out, and I just literally managed somehow to take her. We had no ambulance. It was a very remote area. Took her to the hospital, and doctors said she will not survive. And it took us 3 hours to bring out all the 3 clinical mugs of maggots from her body, the worms that were oozing out. And I was like shattered, and I said, oh my God, have I done wrong? What if she dies? Who's going to take responsibility? And all the social work for a moment had vanished away from my head. And it was then that I called upon one of my spiritual mentors, my guru, and I said, this girl is going to die. Doctors said she's not going to survive. And it was almost, I think, mid of the night, and we very calmly said that, Jaya, your job is to serve her. Doctor's job is to treat her. And leave the job of the saving to the Savior. Don't be scared. Don't be, be impacted by what can go wrong. Just do your best for her. Do something you're doing out of your heart, out of your soul. Everything will be all right. And, you know, after 12 days, that girl was healthily discharged from the hospital. And that was a change, that was a shift in my life, that if I could, aligning with spirituality, with faith, I could, I just dedicated 12 days to one soul. And she survived. So that is my shift in my direction, that I wanted to do it for the rest of my life, for more people. And that's how I chose to use the instrumentality, getting deeper into faith, getting deeper into conscious, getting deeper into human consciousness, and using the instrumentality of faith to create social impact.
Right, so that was the start of a beautiful journey. When we often see women in orange clothes, or anyone for that matter, we think of a life that's cut off from society. But, as you explained, the journey is about looking inward, but it's also about giving back to the society. And you, in your role, while you chose the path of spirituality, were working on ground with people, engaging with them. How did that change you as a person?
Well, I think I've got 2 questions here. First is, people think spirituality is a way of disconnecting with everything. No, spirituality is a way of connecting with yourself. So it's being, I'll just come to that question, but something that's very important we are talking today, why this becomes very important, because we are living in an era of influence. We talk people influencers, I'm influenced, so we're missing inspiration, and we are getting more and more influenced. So, and the more we operate in the 3-dimensional world, and we keep interacting with the external world, we usually lose touch with our own awareness, with our own consciousness, with our own being. So spirituality is way of, even if you want to disconnect for 2 hours, just snap your connection with the external world, sitting with yourself, and that's where the wisdom lies. That's where the true ideas of what you are and what fulfills you and what potential you hold, it lies. And so spirituality is people. So we have to just go do away with misconception that agar if you are dharmic, आप spiritual हो तो अभी आप बाबा जी हो, अभी आप डंडा उठाओ, अभी आप जंगल में जाओ, भिक्षा मांग के खाओ. That's a see वो एक पैरामीटर है, वो एक सिद्धांत है. It's a way different. There are different ways in Sanatan Dharma. So a lot of people जो सिर्फ higher consciousness को जानना चाहते हैं, they leave anything and they become parivrajaks. And there are people, there's one dimension that the people who are spiritual, but they dedicate their life to service of other people. So that's one thing. And when you have to serve people, when you have to, whatever you have learned out of spirituality or dharma, when you want to share it with other people, then you got to live with other people. So the way spirituality and human connection has changed me, one thing that I have understood, that we are not living default destinies. People say, लोग कहते हैं कि अभी जो destiny है, अभी जो किस्मत में लिखा है, वो ही होगा. No. There is no one single destiny for anyone. We are not linear beings living in a linear timeline, past, present, future. That is a timeline. We are dimensional beings, and wherever to whichever dimension you tune your awareness, that is the level of maybe experience. You can actually tuning to any frequency in your existence. You can bring any reality in your life. You could create a life of your own design. And that's the capability I have learned, that what I want to do, I can create it by mind alone.
All right, and I also want to ask you, because you engaged in social work, specifically prison reforms. You engaged with prisoners, hardened prisoners who are cut off from society. How was that for you? And did you have any experience that moved you or stayed with you till date?
So I was very fortunate to be a part of South Asia's lead prisoner correction reform and rehabilitation program. So it spanned to almost 51 jails of India. And so one thing that, it's proving my previous point, ki we are, we believe ki if somebody, so we feel all the people in the jails are criminals. No. They are the people who are in conflict with the law. There are people who have done planned and designed crime. And then there are people who have been at a wrong place at a wrong time, or in a momentary rage, or due to certain circumstances have come in conflict with the law and have done something unlawful. So I'll narrate a story. It's about, since we're talking about women, when I talk about women, I really don't discard men. You really have your role to play, but today we are talking about us. So, I'm just sharing a story of a woman. So she was beaten up by her husband, a person who was an alcoholic, every day. And one day she was and they used to live on that, a shanty which was on the first floor. And he was beating her very badly with a rod, and she literally pushed him. And he tripped over a staircase and fell down and died. So she was saving herself. She wasn't killing the man. But she ended up in jail for a murder. She was charged for killing accidentally though, but she was in the jail. Her children were outside. And she had a very traumatic life inside the jail, because she was serving a jail sentence while children were fending off with relatives who weren't taking good care. So we ensured that though even if a person is a criminal, we have to give him avenue and method to change if they wish. First, we inspire them to change. Then we give method and avenues to change. And then we also give them the resources to live a better life. So first, giving them the avenues to connect with their pure self. So impurities are what? So every human being, all of us, we don't have analytical mind by the time of 7 years of age. So everything that my environment tells me settles as a subconscious programming till 7 years of age. So if I have developed certain conditioning from the society, certain fears, certain anxieties, certain limiting belief, it may be because of my environment, and it settles in my subconscious mind, and it influences the way I act, it influences the way I have belief about myself. But what is pure and which is completely unlimited potential, is your pure consciousness, your own inner consciousness. So when you disconnect with the mental conditioning and connect with the inner consciousness, your whole pure complete self comes out. And you can very well do that with prisoners as well. We've done it with disabled people, we've done it with very, very less privileged people. And when we did it with prisoners, they were completely transformed personalities. They were creative. They could paint like an immaculate painter. They could, and we run livelihood programs. So if you ever Google Holi is coming, if you ever Google Gulal from Tihar jail or Gulal made by, so they're the ones who made first edible grade Gulal, and it was a very hit thing in the market, and now a lot of replicas have come, but the product had initially come from prisoners. So they have made immensely creative products. We made them entrepreneurs. We ensured that they get livelihoods. They earned while living in the jails and also sending money for their families and children and supporting their education and their living while they're in jails. So if a society or a system, a civilization gives the people who've been into conflict with law a certain level of engagement and positive engagement where they can revive their life and be better citizens. So we're going to ask ourselves a question. The people who go to jail, how do we want them to come out? Worsened criminals, bad people, or better people? So if a better person comes out of jail, it's safer for you and me. So what we ensured is that we gave them all the support and inspiration to improve their lives and come out as better reformed citizens. And we also helped them rehabilitate. So that's what my whole journey about in prison was.
I want to ask you, because you were dedicating yourself full-time to spirituality for about 18 years, and then you decided to switch back, also to give back to society. How difficult was that transition, and also what triggered that decision to now go for, to basically switch from full-time spirituality to coming back and starting your own organization to give back to society?
So I haven't switched from spirituality.
Not completely.
Yeah. So I am still a spiritual person. I do my old discipline of waking up early, doing all my spiritual practices, my dhyan, my meditation. Switching back was, that particular institutionalization of certain operation was not serving my purpose anymore. I had gone there for a particular purpose, and if that institutional hardlines are actually defeating the very purpose, so there's no point. So spirituality brings liberation of ideas. If I do not feel liberated in my own self, there's no point of saying that I'm a spiritualist. So spiritualism gives you a free spirit. So that's why I moved on, and my foundation, Human Life Foundation, right now that I have established and I'm running. So my core work, that why I really also the idea behind is, so I do really work on helping people through their conscious awareness to change their personalities, to rewire their brain, and to bring reality in their life of their own design. So every human being from there, so I'll just give a small example here. So we all think, right? So we think anything we are thinking doesn't matter, anything we are feeling doesn't matter. So sometimes people fear, and the more you keep feeling that fear, it conditions your biology to hold to that stress. Sometimes when you are not stressed, you don't feel yourself. If you've been stressed for 3 months, so what happens is, so you said something to me, okay? And I felt really bad. So what's that? That's my mood. And if I carry that mood for 3-4 days, it becomes my temperament. And if I carry for a month, it becomes my personality. So the more I practice any negative emotion, be it by any incident, I am wiring it biologically in my body, and it's going to impact. So when I have a thought and I have an equivalent emotion, it creates an electromagnetic field. So my thought is electric, my emotion is magnetic. So what I feel equal is attracted in my life. So if I'm feeling I'm stressed, if this person has not done right with me, oh my God, I'm not really happy with my job. How long am I going to work like an intern in Republic? Why won't I become an editor? Blah, blah, blah. And when you're thinking, you are operating from a space of lack, you're operating from a space of separation. And because you're feeling it so intensely, you'll keep creating that separation and lack from your desired life every day. Because 90% of what you're feeling today, you felt yesterday. What you're feeling today, you're going to feel 90% of that tomorrow. So you're copy pasting your life one after the another day, and you don't find any change in your life. You want to achieve something, but you keep regretting your present day, so you don't achieve it. So what my foundation right now works is to enabling people. So one thing that we need to believe is that we are quantum beings. We have an energy field. If I learn the technique to drop the physical awareness for 30 minutes in a day, and go into my quantum field, in my energy field, and create anything there. If I do it for 30 days, that reality will start showing in my physical life.
You talked about rewiring your brain. Bringing any change when it comes to the mental field, it's the most gradual and the most difficult. We talk about change and the social change as well, right? And you work on both of these fronts. So how challenging it is for you when it comes to bring a change in the mental space specifically?
I would say it's not challenging at all. So
A lot of people would disagree because you do it so well, that's why it's not difficult for you.
Yes, and that's the point I'm coming to. So sometimes if I'll see, there are a lot of young people I'm seeing here. And when you embark upon a professional or a young journey fresh out of colleges, so you come out with dreams, and then the reality strikes. Oosh, it wasn't the way I thought.
Which is why I asked, because
So-
there's a lot of
So what
noise
happened
around.
is, so when that reality strikes, so what we start going into a zone of regret. We start going into zone of getting into the negative loop. And what you practice is what you become. And your quantum field does not give you what you desire, it gives you what you become. So when I say that if you do something over and over again, and I'll tell you, somebody remembers, have anybody heard, हमारे पुराने लोगों में एक शब्द कहा जाता था चलिया. आज ये चलिया कर रहे हैं, किसी को चलिया वर्ड याद है? Anybody? वैसे तो हम अपनी शब्दावली बहुत भूल गए हैं. Anybody knows चलिया? No, a 40-day practice. So a new neuron in your brain to develop and to get firmed up for lifetime takes 40 days. So if you practice anything, even an emotion, if you could practice those emotions 30 days or 40 days in a row, 30 minutes daily, you will see that that particular electromagnetic field will bring the opportunities in your life that you will access and attain it. And without picking up a call, approaching somebody, requesting somebody, writing a letter, writing a mail, no. And I have lived it. If your thought and your emotion are in equal cognizance, if they are aligned, your life responds to your design. And that's where I feel that enabling people to not be dependent on destiny, circumstances, situations, people, and have your power in your own hand, that's where my work lies today. And because I've done it so many times, and first because even it wasn't, oh, I'm spiritual, I just walk the consciousness and the universe bows down to me. No. I faced my challenges, I faced my hardships, where I even felt, did I take the right path? Was it even right for me? And then I said, no, I'm not going to let this situation ruin me or my belief in myself. And then I said, no, there must be something. So, I remember I had an injury in the sports field. I had my back injury, because of which I had to give in, and it retrived. And it retrived so badly that my lumbar fifth, I couldn't sit. And if I'm sitting, I can't get up. And I said, will this limitation going to define rest of my life? So then, one day in meditation, it struck me that when I was an embryo, when I was a cell in my mother's womb, what was that power that built every single organ and cell of my body and made me into such a complex human form? Has that divinity left me now, or is it still there inside me? Is this power still? If it is still there, it can still regenerate my cells. It can still regenerate my body. And then I used to go every day to my spine and sit, and I used to feel that power is regenerating me. And in a matter of 6 weeks, I was up and walking, and I never took a pill. I was told that I might have to undergo a surgery. I never went to undergo a surgery. I never took a pill. And this is how if I focus, so, energy follows awareness. So if you put your awareness to a purpose and you put it with an intent, And if you practice that intent daily, disconnecting with the outer world, I'll tell you, your field gives you the life you design. And it's not an inspiration, I'll tell you, it is a law. This is how it works.
I think that's inspirational. You know, a lot of young people are there. Therefore, I want to ask you, it has become in to be spiritual, okay? And you talked about that, how it's an era of, influences. So how does one separate the noise from the real song? You know, how does one know that? Especially for young people, I want to ask this.
Ask yourself a question. First thing, to whether our mental and emotional level is healthy, you've got to ask one question. When you open your eyes in the morning, what is the first thought that strikes you in the first 5 seconds? If it soothes you, if it is calming, it's good. But if something is bothering you and it's driving you for the rest of the day, the first thing I'll tell you, every solution comes from within. Just do this small practice. Every day when you start your day, when you open your eyes, 5 minutes of gratitude, thank the universe, thank your deity, thank whoever you pray to for everything you have and you're happy for. It could be a house, it could be a job, it could be your family, it could be your health, it could be your age, it could be the opportunities, it could be your partner, it could be anyone, the education you've had. Take 5 minutes to list and say thank you for everything. And I'll tell you, in some time, more opportunities will start showing up. And after that, take 10 minutes to sit without moving in silence. Just feel yourself, even breathing is enough. And somewhere so we even, now, there are a lot of brain scans which have been done, and people are waking up in high beta. So beta is when you're thinking fast. High beta is when you're thinking like this. People wake up and they're thinking like this. Abhi office jana hai, abhi nahana hai, abhi ye karna hai, and this is going on in the head.
Yeah, I can relate.
And when you're waking up in the high beta, imagine the level of firing and wiring you'll done in your brain for the rest of the day. So how you start your day, you claim your power. And how do you claim your power? Be in your complete presence for 10 minutes. बहुत मुश्किल होगा, बहुत आसान लग रहा है. अरे बैठ जाएंगे, अभी खुजली होगी, अरे उसको फ़ोन करना है, अच्छा वहाँ जाना है, ये तो हुआ नहीं, अच्छा ये कैसे होगा, आज ये करना है, वो मेल नहीं की. आ रहा है ना? Let it come and let it go. Don't fight it. Learn to live in your presence for 10 minutes straight and then expand this time. And I'll tell you, your inner field will give you ideas, solutions, opportunities, synchronicities, and possibilities to a level you would have never imagined, and I can bet on that.
All right, I think that's one big takeaway all of us will take home. And thank you so much, Sadhvi Jaya Bharti, for sharing your journey with us and how exactly one can anchor ourselves inside. Thank you so much.